We'll get started. You guys can hear me okay? Yeah, probably. Small room. Not a lot of people to block the sound. Thanks for coming. My name is Jonathan Rochelle, and I work at Google. I'm a product manager at Google. You might have used some of the products that I have been responsible for, Google Docs and Drive, over the past years. And then more recently, I'm responsible for the products in Google Apps for Education. And I'm going to talk about student engagement today. I want to start with this quote from someone that I probably used to think was a little crazy, Dave Burgess. If anybody knows Dave Burgess, this is a fairly well-known quote, but I think captures student engagement the best way I would know how to capture it. And I would love every educator, frankly, and every ed tech person to make sure they know this quote. And that is, if the students didn't have to be in the room, would they be? Would you be teaching to an empty room? And it's an important question as an educator. Even though you might feel like they are captive, don't you wish they weren't? And there's another quote, that's more infamous perhaps, which I would attribute to an uninspired ed tech person, although I could probably attribute it to a lot of people. That technology, if you want your classroom to be engaging, drop some technology in there. Technology is what makes the classroom engaging. And nothing offends me more than when people would say, that's probably what you think because you work at Google. And that's not true at all. It's the last thing I believe. And if you put those things together and you say, okay, great, you're trying to be inspiring as a teacher, which is a ton of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. It's hard to be inspiring as a teacher and engaging and capture the students and say, you can all leave, but I bet you won't because I'm so engaging. I'm a pirate. That's why Dave uses the pirate analogy or metaphor, I should say. And it's really the role of the teacher is that's what's important. And when you put technology in the room, if you don't make sure the teacher will use it in an inspiring way, don't use it. Don't put it there. And so this was something from Seymour Papert that somebody on my team was just throwing quotes at me. There were so many good ones, so many incredible quotes. But this one I also feel captures something that's super important. And it's not directly engagement, but it's about the environment the teacher creates. And that environment is so critical. It might use technology, it might not, it doesn't matter. But it's an environment and the conditions for invention. It's not just ready-made knowledge. It's not just throwing knowledge out and disseminating information. So I want to tell you a story about a school in the Bronx. It's the Bronx Community Charter School. These are three incredible women. You could probably guess which one is the teacher, but hardly. Christy Crawford is an inspired teacher at this school. And she is able to engage kids. She's able to inspire kids. She creates conditions for invention. And Amma and Julia are two students that she works with, and they're in what was not so popular robotics club. And one of the challenges of the first LEGO League had to do with sustainability, creating sustainable environments. And that's what they were working on. And they were working on projects around sustainability, and they had this idea that they would work on recycling. So they created a presentation, and they were talking about recycling. And this is part of what they were trying to do, is solve a problem. And they were doing all the right things, asking questions. They're saying, okay, if kids in our school were more knowledgeable, they would understand that they're creating too much garbage. 25-pound bags of garbage a day. And one of their, I would say, anchors of their campaign, since we're in campaign territory these days, was no more sporks. Sporks were evil for them. They were really bad. And they were finding that the kids were all throwing out these sporks still wrapped up, plastic sporks by the hundreds. And the way they described it to the kids was, if every month we stacked up all the sporks you guys threw out, it would be as tall as the Empire State Building every month. And they went through this really inspiring attempt to get the kids in their school knowledgeable about recycling and sustainability. And instead, the kids were basically clowning them, as Christy said, for picking through the garbage, to find these sporks, to basically put them in recycling. It just means separating them. So these are just excerpts from their presentation. And they realized that the problem is the kids don't really get it because they're not seeing what they saw. And so what they said was, if we realized that seeing is believing, if we could get the kids on the journey of a piece of trash from our school to the landfill, that would inspire all the kids in the school. Let's do that. And they went out and tried to do that. And they found out, as they put it, it would cost $400 for a bus. And that's just the bus. We would take a day out of school, all the kids, we got to get approvals, all the things that go along with that. It was an inspired idea, and they couldn't do it. And that's sad, because that would have been engaging. That would have been something that they could look at and probably see measurable results from the kids. But it ended right there. So before I go on with that story, I want to talk about some elements of engagement. What makes a lesson, what makes a teacher, what makes a classroom engaging? First, I'll say start with dessert. Somebody I know in this room, Alice Keeler, says start with the robots. Right? If you're going to have some lesson, if you spend time instructing, hey, this is what we're going to do. Like, don't go anywhere. We're going to do this, right? I know that, like I said, Dave Burgess would say, the door is open. You can leave any time. Let me spend 35 minutes describing what we're going to do and then 5 minutes doing it. And I have a 12-year-old who comes home and says, oh, Mrs. M was so close in science today. It sounded like so much fun. And then all she did was talk. She just spoke for like the whole period. And then we had like 3 minutes at the end to do this thing. That would have been great, but it was ruined. And so in trying to teach my daughter skiing, I said, she wasn't that thrilled about learning skiing at first. I said, let's first have a waffle on the mountain. Let's start with dessert. And it was not necessarily the right thing to do from a health perspective, but it was inspiring. Start with the activity. Get right in there. Exploration, if you can provide a place to explore and not give all the answers, it's pretty obvious. But this is not like me describing to teachers how to be inspiring, but it's also for ed tech people. Products that can do this, that can provide exploration and conditions for exploration. I'm not advocating dropping 10-year-olds in the middle of the Sahara Desert, I swear. This is just to describe the conditions that allow you to explore and let you be the person in discovery. And that discovery is so critical in learning. Making it interactive. Interactivity, so you're moving. Make it so that the kids are involved, the students are involved. Even for adults, it's so important. That involvement is what spurs engagement and learning. The memories really kick in. You remember, you can tell the story about that interactivity. And interpersonal interaction. It's different than just action and physical action, but make it personal, make it between people. One of the products that's near and dear to my heart, Google Docs, that's sort of what got me so inspired to get more involved in education. Teachers that used Google Docs, and the first time that they were in a document together with a student was an inspiring moment for them because they saw how it could change their teaching. And they saw the student inspired on how it could change their learning. And the feedback loop that happens and the immediacy of that and the co-writing instead of just writing and turning in and getting back red pen on paper, it was inspiring. That was interpersonal activity. And there's so many stories we get about children writing and doing things with adults, parents, teachers, and children doing the same thing with children. And co-writing. It's inspiring, but it's that interpersonal action that makes it really engaging. Giving it purpose and challenge. Kids don't want their work to be easy. That's the most uninspiring and unengaging thing you can give them. That's not what they're asking for. If they say it's too hard, sure, it can be too hard also, but make it challenging. Make it something that's just tough enough to get them to the next level. And there is this optimal point of learning, but giving it purpose is really critical. And it's the same thing, I hear this from my kids all the time. Why did I learn that? When am I ever going to use that? And so many times I can't answer that. I cannot answer for them what they're going to do with the quadratic equation. I don't know why they're learning it. And I don't know why they can't use their calculator. And I don't know why they can't ask Google for the answer if the answer is right there. I can't answer it if that's how their teacher is teaching. Authenticity, we hear this so much. and relevance. And I see this often in really good ed tech products. Some of the products that are out there now with electronics and simple kits and things that kids can build, it gets them engaged because it's authentic, it's relevant. They can understand that sensing whether or not the dog came through the doggy door is an important signal to maybe make something else happen. And they can build that, and they can learn, oh, that's an if statement. Wow, I can do an if statement. Coding, that's why coding is becoming so relevant and so important and so useful to engage students. You know, here in this picture, there's something authentic about it. I don't know what she's doing. She's about to drop that plant on the keyboard, but it's something authentic there. It's relevant to her. She can probably understand why she's learning it. And one of the most important things from my perspective is to share the experience. There are many experiences that you can do alone they're great, they're wonderful, but sharing the experience gives everybody a common frame of reference. It gives them something to talk about. And as the lesson goes on, as the learning objectives go on and you get to the next level, you can always return together to say, remember when we did X or Y. And that's super important, but it's engaging. It's something that's more fun. And you can relate to this in your own life. It's almost, in some ways, why social media, perhaps, is so popular amongst not just students, but adults. Because you get to share, even if you're alone, your experience with other people. Sometimes people you know really well, sometimes people you don't know really well, but you get to share it. And sometimes that sharing is part of the fun. It's maybe one of the most fun things you want to do. So those are the 7 elements of engagement that I wanted to outline. And we looked at Google at some technology and said, what could we do to make those engaging those experiences happen more often? What technology do we have? And we literally had 2 engineers on the Google Classroom team kind of go off and do about a 3-day hackathon. They hacked away at what you probably know to be Google Cardboard. Google Cardboard gives you a virtual reality experience with a simple smartphone, super cheap and accessible as long as you've got a smartphone. And they made it so that the teacher could at least put kids into environments where they could explore and interact and discover and engage and learn. And so it's a guided experience, but it's not a controlled experience. And so they created Google Expeditions and gave children the ability to go on these trips and to go places where they couldn't go before. And gave the teachers, again, dropping expeditions into the classroom was not the answer. What we tried to do is give the teachers a tool to allow them to engage children more easily in a broader range of places, literally. One of the elements I talked about was starting with dessert. We found it really compelling when you could immediately start this product. And so one of the things we removed was the need for internet. You don't need internet connectivity. So one of the pilots we did was we brought this product in the early days to Ghana where there was no connectivity. And we literally just loaded up a tablet with a bunch of expeditions, brought it into a classroom where there was no connectivity, and it worked beautifully. All we needed was electricity, but the experience was incredible. And it was a way to give those children experiences they could never have without traveling. And there's also no login. So login, as everybody knows, in the classroom, it's one of the toughest things. If you're providing an ed tech tool, how many people here actually have ed tech tools that you sell, partner with, that you do anything with? Are there mostly ed tech companies here? No? Okay, some. Though that login experience, right, trying to do something without single sign-on or some identity is really hard. We didn't need it for this product, and we're lucky in that. And we take these cameras out. It's called the jump camera. It's a crazy rig. It's not easy yet. I mean, you can imagine, if you've ever used a GoPro, imagine trying to sync up 16 GoPros. It's a disaster. It's a nightmare. But the result is incredible. So we actually talk to teachers, educators, administrators, people in the Cultural Institute at Google that they're looking to try to get experiences to people and in people's hands. And we take this camera places and we actually capture these 360 panospheres. And we create expeditions, these trips, these places that teachers can now take children. And it gives children the opportunity to go places they couldn't go before with their teacher, with their teacher as the guide or with someone as the guide that understands where they are and what there is to learn there and how it connects to the learning objective and the lesson. And it's inspiring to see it. We've got about 200 now, and that's actually, it looks like so many because we're starting from nothing, really. But when I look at how many field trips are canceled, and frankly, for pretty good reason. The last field trip that my son went on, and I'm sure you've had this experience, he spent 40 minutes at the site, and they were gone the whole day. They spent 2 hours on a bus to get there, about an hour in organizing and trying to get everybody settled down and in position to experience this thing, and then 2 hours on the bus home, and added up, they were there for 40 minutes. It was appalling. It was really sad. And the 40 minutes, he's like, sure, it was okay, but it's the same thing. It's like Mrs. M talked too long. It's like, yeah, the bus ride was too long. It was really frustrating, and Johnny got sick, and that was gross. And there's so many things about it that's so hard. This is meant to be making it easy. Another way to put it is to democratize these experiences, make them so anybody can go on these experiences. So this is just a very quick view of what the teacher tablet looks like. The way the product works, to not demonstrate it but to describe it is all I can do here. I'm not giving you the very engaging experience you deserve, but this is the teacher tablet. And it lets you scroll through a search for what experience you want to take the class on. You get to that thing and you press it to get into it, and it presents you with the panospheres that are available in that expedition. And all of the students get to visit one of those panospheres with you as a teacher. And you as a teacher are using the tablet to at least look around and figure out what to point out, but they are exploring. The students are exploring separately. And as a teacher, you get the guide. Now, all of these expeditions were written by teachers. They were created by teachers with panospheres and photography that we had captured. So coral reefs is an example. This was basically put to teachers to say, what kind of lesson would you create around this content? Do that. And they created that lesson, and they offer it to other teachers. And the teacher can basically pick a point of interest and take kids there. And this is what the child sees, of course, but in an immersive, actual 3D environment. This is the only way to represent it in 2D. But I can say, as a teacher, hey, everybody, check out the diver. And I can point to it, and the kids get the signal to look for the diver. And the teacher can see on the teacher tablet who's actually looking at the diver and who's not. They can get a feeling for how many kids are actually looking on their tablet. And it's really incredible. I was one of the most skeptical people when this thing was created. I said, there's no way this is going to work. This is just, it's over-the-top tech on kids' faces. Sure, we can try it. And from the moment we stepped into a classroom where the teacher was guiding kids, we actually all were blown away, and we knew it actually could work. And again, under the right conditions. Let's go back to Amma and Julia, the two students from Chrissy's class. They decided, with this problem they had, not being able to take everybody to a landfill, they wrote a letter to our team. And the letter was basically, can you create a virtual trip to the recycling plant that would let us inspire the children in our school to recycle and to make a sustainable school? And they literally, we received this letter and we're like, what should we do? And the answer was obvious. We should do it. We should go. It was an inspiring story, and it was student-driven. You talk about student-centered learning. This was a student idea, and we went and captured that. We went to the recycling plants. We went to 4 different sites, took that crazy jump camera, captured the panospheres. We got Julia and Amma with us so that they could sort of report on the experience. And then we brought it back to their school and let every 5th grader in their school go to the recycling plant. And it was incredible. It was amazing. And the children who before were not so nice about the garbage-picking girls that were pulling sporks out are now waiting in line for that job. Those kids are so inspired. They totally get it. And the technology was just a tool to try to get them to see the recycling plant. The same thing would have happened probably if they could take them on the tour of that piece of garbage, which is a great idea for a children's book, by the way, for any writers out there. But that piece of garbage, you can see where it goes and find out it ends up in a landfill, potentially in your backyard, and making your water bad. And that's inspiring. I'll take that spork out of the garbage. I won't even put it in there in the first place. And now there's this whole process around this spork recycling that these girls created. They made it happen. And so this is a snapshot from a news story, as is this, with Julia and Amma, who were able to describe this first to their whole school in assembly, where they described how the process went and their engagement and trying to engage their students as peers, and then we're on the news. And they're superstars in their school now. So it's certainly an edge case. You're not going to see this happen all the time, but it's a very inspiring story about how technology was used to engage students. So Julia and Amma, again, most importantly, were driven and engaged by their teacher, Christy Crawford. And with teachers like that, and with ed tech people trying to introduce technology that will give experiences that can be really engaging and help teachers create engaging lessons, I really think we can make, move the needle and make something that's incredible for schools. Thank you.